Hey everyone, welcome to Wednesday of week 7. And here we go. We're talking about oceans. Moving on from where we were, we're now looking at the health of Earth. I see that there are some of you that are maybe struggling to get connected, and so I'll start kind of slow so folks can jump in. So the first thing I'd like to say is actually an announcement about your reflection action assignment for next week. Is that you're going to be creating a concept map, something that looks like this, except yours will probably actually look more like this. It asks you to tape 3 pieces of paper together and to really dive into chapter 5 of the book and see where you can find connections. You may want to add colors like this student did. You might want to add bolder lines or skinnier lines or however you want to define those connections. But this is what your concept map will end up looking like, something like this, some version that is your own, of your interpretation of what's in chapter 5 and all of those connections. I just want to remind you that you can use all of your cool equipment, your body's equipment. You can tether this to your vagus nerve and figure out how your head and your heart and your gut connect around all of the information in chapter 5. And so I wanted to mention that today, as some of you will probably be getting started on interpreting what that assignment looks like. If you have further questions, please bring them to your TAs during lab this week, and they'll be able to help you out with what this really looks like, how to draw these. And since doing this, I've become kind of a concept map nerd. And so if I'm having a feeling that I can't quite identify, or if something's really bothering me but I can't really sort it out, then I have found concept mapping to be really useful, as well as for planning programs that I do for work. And so this is I have found this to be a pretty useful skill that I'd like to introduce to all of you. So good luck with your concept maps. I look forward to hearing about how that goes for all of you. And that's coming up. The other announcement that I need to make today is that there's a pack-back assignment makeup time. And so I know that some of you got a slow start and maybe didn't get a chance to do the first question, or maybe missed the third question, or maybe a couple weeks ago with Thon, you just didn't have time to do it. And I want you to have the full experience of answering those questions. And so there is a pack-back assignment makeup time. So if you've missed any of those prompts, you can go back and submit them, and they will be counted in your final grade. So from Monday, March 8th at 8 a.m. until Sunday, March 14th at 11:59 p.m., you can make up any of those questions that you missed along the way. They are all listed in Canvas under the pack-back question. It's under pages, and you can find all of the prompts listed there. And so we mentioned this. This is where we started on Monday, thinking about what part 2 of the course is really diving into. The idea that we have started with an atypical approach, but as an educator, that's my choice, because I feel as though that will help to connect you to the material even better. So the word education comes from 2 root words, the first of which is educare, which means to train or to mold, and the second is educere, which means to lead out. And they're both quite different, but they're both represented in the word education. So my goal is to do both. I am hoping that I can present you with some information that is fact, and that can help you in the future. But I also hope that I am leading you out. We are going to face challenges that we don't even know what they're going to be. I mean, think about COVID. We People had suspicion and expectation that we would be facing this sort of outbreak, except that those people have already been working on all the things that need to be done, and so they were anticipating this sort of thing happening. So there are lots of those cases where we might anticipate something and need to get ready for it, or maybe something is going to surprise us altogether, and we're going to need to find solutions. And so being creative, thinking creatively, is really what my job is to help inspire you to do. So maybe you're curious about environmental science. Maybe you've heard some things in the news. And so this morning, I'd like you to ponder with your group for a couple of minutes these questions. Why did you sign up for environmental science? And what do you want to learn about related to the environment? So take a couple of minutes and brainstorm this. So today we're going to continue, as I mentioned, with oceans. So building on this idea of what's happening in the environment right now. And so I'd like you to take this in. This is the first photograph taken by William Anders. It's the first photograph of Earthrise taken from the moon in 1968. And you get an idea of what this means. The title of the photo is The Blue Planet. Oceans cover much of this planet and make it distinct in our solar system. Water is the key. So for our presencing today, like you to think about the ebb and the flow of your breath, the in and the out, similar to the tides, the in and the out, the waves of the ocean, the rhythms of life, our breath is one of those rhythms. And as you look at this photo, what does it evoke for you? What does it bring up in you? What is your relationship with the ocean? How do you feel about the ocean? I'd like you to take time in your group to really dive into this. Dive into the ocean. So today we're going to connect with this place. Whether you've been to the ocean or you have never seen the ocean, we're going to do our best to connect to the magic of this place. What can we do to create a relationship between the ocean and its creatures? So we'll start back here at these Polynesian sailors. Imagine these sailors as children. As children, they were put into tide pools at very young ages. And in those little pools, they were able to feel the pull and the push of the tides. They developed sensitivities to the movements of the ocean, and they worked toward figuring out their abilities to read the water, to decipher the patterns of the waves. It was the way that they came to know their world. They were able to traverse thousands of miles across the oceans with no modern technology by using The stars and the sky, the clouds, the way the movement of the water felt to them as they sailed their boats across. The navigators, they traveled to small uninhabited islands using these wayfinding techniques, and their knowledge passed on by oral tradition, from master to apprentice, often in the form of songs. And so they were able to detect changes in speed, their heading, and whatever time it was during the day or the night. They paid attention to the flights of the birds, and all these clues got them to places that they had never ever seen, that they knew existed. The wave patterns around islands changes the way the ocean moves. And so they were able to find those islands. It's a real body-based intelligence. This woman, Sylvia Earle, she says, even if you never have the chance to see or touch the ocean touches you with every breath you take, every drop of water you drink, every bite of food you consume. Sylvia Earle spoke on campus in March of 2020, and I've always talked about her in this class, but then to meet her in person and to hear her passion, to hear her speaking on behalf of the place that she has a real body-based intelligence in such a modern way. She is a great explorer of our time as she continues to quest and fight for the health of the oceans. So these oceans, when we look at a map of the world like this, the oceans seem to be what's interspersed. So we separate them. You can see Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, Indian Ocean, Arctic Ocean, Southern Ocean. And yet they're all one. If you really look at this, they aren't really divided. It's really one big body of water. And if we change this is the land-centric view of our world. If we actually look at the Pacific Ocean this way, we can really see how much there is here. 71% of the Earth's surface is water covered, and the oceans hold about 97% of the Earth's water. So water exists in the air as water vapor, of course, in rivers and lakes and streams, in ice caps and glaciers. It's in the ground as soil moisture and in aquifers, and even in you and in me and in your dog. All of that water equals 3%. What's in the oceans is the other 97%. The ocean is 99% of our biosphere. Biosphere means the space where things live. So the depth of the ocean is crazy, is absolutely amazing to think about how deep it goes down. On the surface of the land, we have the land, then we have the things that live in the dirt, and then that's about it. But in the ocean, all of the different layers where creatures live, things like this. I have a friend who lives in Hawaii, and I had him send me these pictures. He's been scuba diving, and he sent me this picture of this white-tipped reef shark that he took while he was scuba diving. Or this, isn't that crazy? Those are eagle rays swimming, and he was able to capture that photo. And so when humans enter this realm, this world, we encounter a number of problems. There's only so far down that we can go as scuba divers. I mean, as a snorkeler, me up on the surface, I get to see like lots of things from, just from a very top layer. And then scuba goes the next layer. They can go down to about 250 feet. But then people like Sylvia Earle and others have created submersibles. where they can take these sorts of machines down under the water. This is also in the world of scuba, so this one is not going all that deep, but ways that we have been able to expand the ways we explore. And that's been pretty remarkable. So there are submersibles like this that are doing all kinds of ways of testing and understanding the space of the ocean. The ocean has not been fully explored. There's a lot left that we just don't know. There are submersibles like this that people can ride in and go down deeper. And yet there are still limitations. The ocean, in its deepest parts, are 11,500 feet deep. It's over 2 miles deep. And so to explore that part of the ocean is really challenging, really challenging. And yet when we get down there, there's all kinds of cool things going on. It's so dark down there. How could anything live down there? As somebody who needs sunshine, you notice I'm outside today, can't stay inside on a day like this. I need the sun. But how do these creatures live in the deepest, darkest, overwhelming? Part of it is that they do not have air in their bodies. That's why we can't go very deep, is because we have so much air in our bodies. They do not have swim bladders like that are found in shallow water fish. So without the air in their bodies, the pressure problem is solved. So things like fish, there are some fish and crabs and octopus and limpets and clams, all these things don't have the problem with the depth like we do. And so what happens when we go even deeper is that we find things like this. Beautiful and crazy and amazing. Somebody put into the chat, the ocean is like traveling in a different world. And it's so true. For 4.5 billion years, the ocean defined the earth. The microbes, the phytoplankton, the fish, the whales, those eagle rays, those sharks. It's like an orchestra playing away in harmony. And yet today, humans have shifted what's happening. We've created discord. We are the ones defining the oceans now. And it's not all that harmonious. These are the natural currents of the ocean. They're called gyres. So you can see the red arrows are the warm currents. The blue arrows are the cold currents that flow in our oceans. It's bringing the warm air of the equator and shifting, or the warm water of the equator, and shifting in these cycles that are happening constantly. This is happening constantly. These ocean currents do act as conveyor belts of the warm water, but they also act as conveyor belts for the warm air. So they're sending heat toward the polar regions and helping the tropical regions cool off. And therefore, they are constantly affecting both weather and climate. And so there's this uneven distribution of the solar radiation that happens at the equator, and then it gets spread all around the planet by these natural currents. If this didn't happen, Earth would be less habitable because of the intense heat in the middle and the intense cold at the sides. And so this is a really important thing to understand. These currents are doing other things too. So right now, they're collecting garbage. These ocean gyres, there's the eastern garbage patch and the western garbage patch that's there in the North Pacific Gyre. And each of those patterns that we saw in the previous slide have their own collections of garbage. We're going to look at this one as an example. This is a guy named Charles Moore, and he took out his boat with a fine mesh net, and he found that for every living ton of creatures, so a ton of living creatures, there were 6 tons of plastic debris. Nearly every molecule of plastic that has been created on our planet is still on our planet. It doesn't go away. It keeps getting smaller and smaller, and so in his container there, you can see those plastics, and they continue to break down. And so then there's microplastics, things that we can't even see. The chemicals of the plastics are still in the water. 50 years ago, there was not much plastic. But in the last 50 years, 368 million tons of plastic was produced in 2018. Globally, humans buy 1 million plastic water bottles per minute. And 91% of plastic is not recycled. The idea that plastic can be recycled has been a joke. It's not real. Plastic is not fully recyclable. It breaks down. It doesn't work that way. We have been fooled by the plastic industry. It is estimated that by 2050, the ocean will contain more plastic than fish. So this is a beach at Munkar on the island of Java. 400-yard wide, mile-long stretch of sand was feet deep in trash, plastics. It's the little sauce packets that you get at the convenience stores and the fast food restaurants, shopping bags, diapers, bottles, bags, plastic clothes, detergent bottles. Bulldozers cleared away and buried some of the plastic and sand 2 years ago, but every tide since then has washed up more trash from the ocean, and this town is being buried in trash. We fear for our future, one elderly woman said. She remembered Munkar only a decade ago as one of the most picturesque towns in Indonesia, a tourist hotspot. And so something must be done with plastic. So this community is affected by plastic. But who else is affected by plastic? I encourage you to take in this video. Don't look away. Breathe deep and take it in.
Do we have the courage to face the realities of our time and allow ourselves to feel deeply enough that it transforms us and our future? Come with me on a journey through the eye of beauty, across an ocean of grief, and beyond.
Challenging to watch. He says in there, do we have the courage to do what it takes? And it's going to take a lot of courage, a lot of change. Other things are affected by the plastic as well. This beach whale was found on the California coast with 400 pounds of plastic in its stomach. Plastic production is currently scheduled to increase by 40% by the year 2030. And why? Somebody put in the chat, why? Why are we using plastic if it can't even be recycled? If it can't be reused? What's going to happen with that? And so somebody else put in the chat, I want to know things that I can do to help the planet. And this is one of them. Paying attention to your plastic consumption, my plastic consumption. So it's something to really take in and consider. And yet, plastic isn't the only thing that's damaging or hindering or hurting the creatures of the ocean. Longline fishing is a practice that's currently being used, and I'm not trashing fishing. It's the awareness piece that I'm trying to encourage. Fishing, like so many things, has evolved. If you think back to that picture of the Polynesian sailors, they ate a lot of fish and they fished for it and they were connected to the resource. Long line fishing, how long are the lines? Some of them are a mile and some of them are 50 miles. So they get spread out from boats like this. You saw a picture of some in that video of Midway with the birds. There were a whole bunch of fishing buoys spread around where the birds were nesting. These are the yellow spots there are those kind of buoys. And on these long lines, there's no way that the fishermen can watch the lines as if they were paying attention. And so on these lines, they catch sharks and sea turtles. They catch swordfish and other creatures that come to feast on these baited lines, the dolphins. And there's not just this long line fishing, there's also trawling. So this is a picture of a diagram of a trawler. So it's this net that is moved along the ocean floor, happens on the continental shelf. And they drag these nets around. These nets might be big enough to hold 13 jumbo jets. These are the super trawlers that are now a thing, that are working on in our oceans right now. And so these nets, they're being dragged along the bottom floor, and what are they catching? They're catching everything. They're catching the fish that they're intending to catch. They're also catching sea turtles and whales and dolphins. If a mother dolphin gets caught, or if a baby dolphin gets caught in one of these nets, the mother dolphin will stay with it and both of them will drown. There are these sad stories of how things have come to be, of evolution of time, of disconnect, of seeing the ocean as a resource and the absence of appreciation for what's going on there. The bottom trawling results in the bottom of the ocean looking like this. This is a picture taken from space, and those are the lines that the trawlers have made on the bottom of the ocean. What's happening is that they're scraping up everything, disrupting the entire ecosystem on the bottom of the ocean floor. And a researcher from the University of Hawaii says bottom trawling is the most destructive of any actions that humans conduct in the ocean. And here's one more story. This is the case study of an overfished stock of the North Sea cod. So this is in Scotland. In the late 1990s, the fishermen were pulling about 60% of the cod out of the water each year in the North Sea. It doesn't take a lot of math to figure out that that's not very sustainable. And so about 10 years ago, the government bought half of the fishing boats in Scotland and they destroyed them. The boats that kept working were put under strict regulations, the number of days they could spend at sea, the number of cod they could catch. And that's what it looks like to have courage, to change the story. Because now you can see that cod are on the rise. Those little circles are showing that the numbers are going up. It's going to take time to recover those populations. It's because the people cared about the cod. They cared about what was happening in the oceans. They saw that what was happening was not sustainable, and they made change, really dramatic change. And they had to if they were going to continue subsisting on fishing cod. And those are the kinds of courageous choices it takes. Sylvia Earle said in her speech that 90% of the big fish are gone. She says we can be the saviors of humankind. She says humankind because we are here, what we're doing, the choices we're making are hurting other things. But in the end, if we're gone, they're going to go on without us. Life on Earth will go on without humans. It did before, and it can after. Already altering the pieces of the puzzle. Looking at these species extinctions, this is something that Doug was talking about on Monday with birds. We have lost, the Earth has lost 3 billion birds in 40 years. We are changing the landscape. So this is species extinction, and we're thinking about birds, amphibians, mammals, fish, insects, etc., etc. Every year, more things go extinct, and going at a very rapid pace compared to what they were for a long time. And there's a direct correlation to that as the human population increases, our disconnect to this natural world around us also increases, and the number of extinctions increase. So our previous presidential administration had rolled back about 100 laws and rules and regulations that protected the planet, and the current administration is now working to put those back in place. They're working to reinstate those rules that are good for the environment. They are the courageous ways of being, and yet there's so much more to that. I put an article link to that in the week of chapter 7, or week 7 module on Canvas. And so now that's a lot. What I just have said to you is a lot. I'd like you to take a couple minutes and talk about what are you thinking and feeling and intuiting right now. So look closely. Do you see that each of them are different? Each of them are individuals, not big business, not a commodity. Sylvia Earle again. She says a lot of people excuse their bad behavior toward fish by saying, oh, they don't feel pain. But that's nonsense. Fish have all the same equipment that we do to feel pain. She says, don't make up stories to try to spare your conscience. You either choose to inflict pain on other creatures or you don't. So seeing fish with new eyes, they have homes too, just as the sharks and the eagle rays and the turtles like this, green turtles. This is another picture taken in Hawaii by my diving friend who saw this green turtle. They're known to live at least 60 to 70 years. And you can imagine in that time, they have their homes, they have their spaces, they know their places, they know where to find food, they know where safe places to go, they know their migration route, they know all those things that they need to know to survive for 60 or 70 years. They have routines and they have patterns, just as we do. And so I love the ocean. I love the ocean. I want to be near it. I want the best for it. I fear its loss and grieve its injuries. I want to know everything about it, its moods, and what it looks like by moonlight. Isn't that magnificent? I want to protect it fiercely, and I'm helpless to do otherwise. Remember how the Polynesians loved the oceans. They knew the ocean in these intimate ways. They were connected. And so how can we be our best for the oceans that we love? That's my challenge and my question to you today. How can we be our best for the oceans that we love and rely on? There is this movie that I would like to recommend to you. It's on Netflix. If you'd like to be inspired about the oceans, we don't deliberately hurt the ocean, but we have and we are. About 12% of the land around the world is protected. The land, 12%. It's under some form of protection, national parks, etc. But less than 6% of the ocean is protected in any way. Hope spots are what these are marked on the map. Those are protected areas of ocean. This movie talks about these hope spots and the idea of how we can work to protect the oceans. The ocean has been a great stabilizing factor of nature, and we are destabilizing it rapidly. And so how can we be the best for our oceans? Thank you for all your thoughtful comments and questions. I appreciate that, and I look forward to talking with you again soon. I hope you have a beautiful day.